Hello everybody, today we will be talking about Covert Channel. A covert channel is a communication channel that allows a process to transfer information in a manner that violates the system's security policy. The term originated in 1973 by Lampson is defined as channels not intended for information transfer at all, such as the service program's effect on the system load. The diagram shows the mechanism of the covert channel in the automated system. Element 1 is security offender, also known as the attacker, which goal is to obtain unauthorized access to restricted information or unauthorized influence on the automated system. Element 2 is restricted access information or critical functions. Element 3 is subjects which have authorized access to the 2 and 5. Element 3' is an intruder security agent in a closed loop, with 2 and cooperating with a 2 in the name of the subject 3. Element 4 is inspector, such as software, firmware, hardware, or person that controls the information interaction of 3 intersecting closed loops that separates the object of information from the external environment. Element 5 is the subject that is outside the closed loop, which provides 3-sectioned information interaction. Covert channels of information transmission mechanism divide into 3 sections. The first one is storage covert channels, the second one is timing covert channels, and the third one is statistics covert channel. Storage covert channels based on the available memory in which the subject writes the information transmitting and receiving. The totality of all the visible objects of the infringer referred to the visible space of the observer. Then storage covert channels suggest changes to the visible space of the observer, so that the information transmitted can be considered special. For example, we have a policy of information security with high and low levels of access. High channel memory may be transmission of information by changing names of files, directories, and so on, created entity with a high level of access so that these changes are visible to a subject with a low level of access. In this case, the information can be passed by the file names and the list of attributes of files. Change files, date in file size, etc. The existence of a file with a given name can carry bits of information. Thus, the system of protection does not disclose data communication channels, as the above actions do not violate the established security policy information. Storage covert channel is divided into closed channels based on the concealment of information. Structured data is where the information embedded in objects having formally described structure, for example, in the file formation field. Unstructured data is where information is written to flat objects. An example of the unstructured data type of covert channel is to record information in the least significant bits of the transmitted image, so that changes are indistinguishable to the human eye. In timing covert channels, transmitting data subjects modulates information to be transmitted via a certain time-varying process. The subject that receives information to be able to demodulate the transmitted signal by observing the process of carrying information in time. For example, the timing covert channel is known as two computers are connected to a shared resource, ROM, while other links between the machines are missing. On both computers are set bookmarks. Bookmark on one computer by pressing K on the keyboard modulates the employment ROM library, while the tab for another scan time employment library requests. With the modulation intervals library ROM, you can transfer information, forming a timing covert channel. Similarly, one can use the time of employment of the CPU. Thus, one length of a period of employment is coded by 0, another is unit. Also, the time intervals may be used between the access to the CPU. Note that the storage and timing covert channels can be divided according to the principle that fixes the outer offender. A. If it detects any value, the channel can be described as a parametric data covert channels are called storage covert channels. B. If it detects an event, the channel can be described as event data covered channels and called timing covered channel. Covered statistical channel is used for transmission of information change in parameters of the probability distribution of any characteristics that might be considered as a random and described probabilistic and statistical models. In the diagram, we have a collaborator, a client, and a server. Even though the program is secure and everyone can access their area, it may still leak to the collaborator via covert channel. Another way of a covert channel is locking and unlocking. We have a server and a collaborator. We have file locks and unlocks. Each of locking-unlocking operation is indicated by 1 or 0. In this way, a bit stream is generated and can be observed by the collaborator. Here, images can be used for covert channels. We have images and each image consists of a number of pixels depending on its resolution. Each pixel is represented by an RGB value that is 3 bytes. An agent can change the least significant bit of these RGB values. Changing the least significant bit will not have a huge effect on the image. In the zebra images, the appearance is the same. The changes done are not visible. However, in the second zebra image, Hamlet, Macbeth, Julius Caesar, Merchant of Venice, King Lear are embedded. It is also possible to classify the characteristics of covert channel of information flow. According to this principle, covert channels are divided into direct and indirect. If you create a single information flow from the sender to the recipient, the covert channel is called direct. If you create multiple streams of information, the covert channel is called indirect. For example, in a system with 2 computers and a ROM as described above, an indirect covert channel, since there are 2 data flows, from one computer to the ROM and the ROM of the second computer. Ordinary things such as the existence of a file or time used for computation have been the medium through which a covert channel communicates. Covert channels are not easy to find because these media are so numerous and frequently used. 2 techniques remain standard for locating potential covert channels. One is analyzing the resources of a system and other one is working at the source code level. From observations of the characteristics of the automated system from outside can also possible to obtain some information. Therefore, covert channels using the identification of the sender is divided into active and passive. Covert channels are divided into channels with noise and without noise. The first type of channel is a channel without errors. Also, it is known as without noise channels. This is probably through recognition of characteristics send is equal to 1. For such channels, the equation holds and can be described, where I is the average method information, x is a random variable describing the input characteristics of the channel, and y is the random variable that describes the output characteristics of the channel. For the second type of channels are channels with errors, also known as channels with noise. For example of those kinds of channels are called Z channels. This binary covert channels in which 0 is transmitted correctly with probability equal to unity and 1 is transmitted with probability 1 bigger than p, and q is equal to 1 minus p. The covert channel memory described in the figure above here, where information transmitted by creating a file will be the channel with noise if the creation of a file is not only the tabs but also in other processes. The possibility of covert channels cannot be completely eliminated, although it can be significantly reduced by careful design and analysis. The detection of a covert channel can be made more difficult by using characteristics of the communications medium for a legitimate channel that are never controlled or examined by legitimate users. For example, a file can be opened and closed by a program in a specific time pattern that can be detected by another program, and the pattern can be interpreted as a string of bits, forming a covert channel. Since it's unlikely that legitimate users will check for patterns of file opening and closing operations, this type of covert channel can remain undetected for long periods. A similar case is a port knocking. In usual communications, the timing of requests is relevant and unwatched. Port knocking makes it significant. Here are the documents and slides I have used. Special thanks to Yücel Saygın. The slides are based on his lectures. So thank you all for listening to me. Have a nice day.